What is up, guys? Frosty Aussie here today for another Frosty Features. Today we have the first member of our Thunderbolts team, Victoria Hand. So if you haven't been here before for one of these, what this is a comic book background on the tunes that you use in Marvel Strike Force, and I am your guide through the pages. So yeah, let's begin. According to Scopely, what this is the blog post description that is given for a character that comes to Marvel Strike Force. In the case of Victoria Hand, she was voted on against a few other individuals. I believe this is the one we had Justin Hammer. It was definitely one of the earlier votes. But anyway, so with that, they came up with this really neat designed thing, and it's not exactly a blog post description of her, but it's a note from her. So what we normally do is we read these and then we rate them at the end of the feature. So I'm gonna read to you, right? Name: Victoria Hand. Height: 5'6". Eyes: hazel. Weight: redacted. Subject: Thunderbolts. Commander: I believe that Project Aegis, adamantine enhanced group of international spies, I can read, I promise. International spies is the next step in interdimensional espionage. By outfitting S.H.I.E.L.D. agents with the adamantine forge gear that I have outlined here, we can proactively infiltrate and eliminate threats from any world, anytime, all under the radar. We can be the ultimate arbiters of justice. Trust in the institution. Trust in Aegis. Alright? And then it's just, it's weapon descriptions. Cool. We have art. We have a description. You can see my face. Moving on. Victoria Hand. This is her from the comics. Very rarely seen without a big old gun with her. Name: Victoria Hand. First appearance: Invincible Iron Man, Volume 2, number 8, from 2008. Yes. Background: unknown. So here's one of the things. Sometimes in Frosty Features we run into characters where we will cover their entire history. Victoria Hand was made in 2008 and died just a few years later, and to the date of this recording is still dead. So I'm not gonna go in detail about every little thing she does, but we're gonna cover her whole story. Okay? So with that, her background was actually never revealed. The first time we see her is she is a trained S.H.I.E.L.D. agent working as an accountant for the company, right? Very back of the road individual. She's a secretary level S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, so she's been through boot camp, etc. when we first see her. But before that, she never actually talks about where she's from or anything about her. Powers and abilities: none. As I said, she's a trained S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, so she has hand-to-hand combat, but she actually is just she's a lady. She's just a lady. She's just a girl, right? Aliases: no duel. Her name is Victoria Hand, and that's what she is. For context, I always got her mixed up with Valerie DeFontaine for some reason. I think it's the hair. So take from that what you will. Affiliations: S.H.I.E.L.D., Avengers, Hammer, right? There is a very small dalliance where she technically gives an order to the Thunderbolts, but she's not actually in the comics, Marvel 616 continuity. She's not actually affiliated with the Thunderbolts, but there is a point in her realm. She's always the secretary. She's always the second in command. Wherever she's at, she's a secretary, then becomes sort of a vice president figure, right? So kind of like Valerie DeFontaine, but if not president, vice president. So she becomes essentially strategist number 2. Think Maria Hill. Very much think Maria Hill. Ultimately, she's just somebody. She pulls the trigger from the desk, right? So with that, there is a point where she gives orders to Thunderbolts, but she's actually factually outside of Marvel Strike Force is not affiliated with Thunderbolts as of this recording day. Who died? Can't be a superhero, supervillain without somebody dying. And in this situation, her whole backstory actually revolves heavily around 9/11. There is a big point, one of her big points of her as a character. The closest thing to a background we have is as she's working for Shield, she is dating a girl named Isabel, and she writes a letter, and in the letter she is criticizing Nick Fury's handle of the war on terror. And in this, she debates if she's going to send it or not, and her girlfriend is trying to convince her not to send it. She sends it anyway, and she sticks to her guns, and her relationship comes to an end, and she gets transferred from New York to Oregon because she essentially just told her boss off in a letter, right? This becomes very important. This is extremely important to her character, and this becomes very important in her plot as a character. So with that, without 9/11 and the war on terror beginning, that would have happened. So there you go. Guns. She is trained with all forms of shield weaponry, and she is very rarely seen without guns. And we will be talking about in our notable events section. We will be discussing a point in which she probably shouldn't have had a gun, but she had one anyway. Little bit of logic. So the thing that I've noticed most about Victoria Hand, she is incredibly intelligent. She's not Reed Richards, right? She's not Tony Stark. She's not a super. She doesn't have a superhuman level of intellect, but she is very intelligent. And it's funny because the moves she makes using logic seem more sound than some of these super geniuses, but it's in canon. I can't say she's a super genius. I honestly, it might just be a plot thing, but she's strategically, she's very smart. A big thing about her as a character is she essentially will go through these dossiers, right, of every person she might run into, anybody, the Avengers or Shield or Hammer, whatever. If there's a superhuman involved, she knows everything they can do, right? That there's nothing exactly special about that. Ultimately, though, she will go out of her way to make sure she does her homework, right? Which is very, very important to her as a character. Relationships. Isabel, ex-girlfriend. Besides that, we don't know, right? She works closely with Norman Osborn, and we'll talk about that in just a second. She works closely with Norman Osborn, and then she essentially goes back and forth being vouched for by a few people. But she's extremely hated by the people around her her entire run in comics. There really isn't anybody that just likes her, right? The only one that likes her as a person would be Norman Osborn, and he doesn't know. I don't know. So I didn't even include him in relationships. You could. Ex-boss, I guess. Notable events. So with that, let's talk about it. So her entire length of time in comic books starts with the inception of the Dark Avengers. This is when she gets more or less, we see that she exists. So it's hey, I like you. Let's actually talk about that actually. So in the Dark Avengers, what happens is after the Superhuman Registration Act, Norman Osborn becomes aware, so he starts to gain power here because he's using the Thunderbolts as a police team. This is where she kind of has interaction with the Thunderbolts. So Superhuman Registration Act, Civil War. If you're a superhero, you have to be registered through the government. You have to be approved to be able to do these things. He uses the Thunderbolts as a policing agency for anyone who operates outside of these. So they're catching superhumans that are performing vigilante acts, throwing them in jail, whatever. At this point, because he's running some shield operations, he finds this letter that was sent to Nick Fury, and he's impressed by essentially the gumption of this woman, right? What he really likes about her is he found out, lost a relationship, whatever. There's a conversation she has with Norman, and ultimately Victoria in such a way that is very similar to Captain America. She is a person of conviction. When she thinks something is right or wrong, ethically, morally, she always tries to go with what she believes is ethically correct. She sticks to it no matter what, right? Very much a Captain America trait, which we'll see that reflected later. But because of her sticking it to, she essentially was like, Nick Fury, y'all have not done anything as far as the war on terror is concerned. That is ridiculous, whatever. Because she was willing to tell Nick Fury off, she Norman Osborn was like, this person's great, because Norman Osborn, especially, so at this point in time, he's over the Superhero Registration Act. He brings her on as a secretary or an accountant, I can't recall. Ultimately, he has her working with him because of her conviction, right? It doesn't, she will not always agree with him because he is Norman Osborn, because he's famous, he has money, he's known to be extremely intelligent. He knows that she's going to speak it as it is, right? Which is him actually trying to do something that is legitimate. This is also very important because after Norman Osborn publicly shoots a Skrull Queen in the head on TV during Secret Invasion, he becomes the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., which puts him in charge and the Avengers Initiative. So he's over the Avengers, he's over S.H.I.E.L.D., and on Frosty Features, we have talked about Dark Avengers over and over and over and over. Frosty Features Moonstone, Frosty Features Dakin. But ultimately, so when he puts together Dark Avengers, which is an Avengers team comprised of, it is him as Iron Patriot, Norman Osborn as Iron Patriot. We've got Dakin, Wolverine's son, standing in as Wolverine. We have Bullseye standing in as Hawkeye. We have Moonstone standing in as Captain Marvel. And then what else do we have? We have Sentry, who's really important, and Ares, who has never been a good guy. Ultimately, we've got a really volatile team, and Norman Osborn wanted his second, when he becomes head of S.H.I.E.L.D., etc., he wanted his second to be strong in conviction and not afraid to say what they think, because they'll be, talking at people like Moonstone, talking at people like Sentry, who could just obliterate them, right? So he needs somebody strong, especially in the event that he falls in battle or what have you. So therefore, Victoria Hand gets placed in this situation, and she does what she's tasked for, right? There are multiple times where she gets in the face. Once again, she's just a girl, right? She's just a lady. She gets in the face of Moonstone, essentially, the arch enemy to Captain Marvel, right? Very powerful people. Dakin and Sentry, she gets in their faces a couple of times because of how they act. Her big thing is to try to keep them in line, and she is very, very effective at this job. So throughout this process, we find that as the Dark Avengers are operating, they do some really questionable things. One of those moments where comic books aren't always for kids. We do have a situation in the Dark Avengers line where Moonstone is actively having sex with Hawkeye or with Bullseye in the meeting room, right? So Victoria Hand is the person that has to go in there and be like, "Hey, get your stuff together. What are you doing?" So that she performs that role pretty extensively, and as they keep going and things are unraveling and the Dark Avengers are getting kind of brutal because of the people they have around, she actually goes to Norman and she's like, "Hey dude, I know you're running this thing and you're trying your hardest. I think you need to see a therapist, right? Because all these people are doing some pretty crazy stuff, and I've seen you do some crazy stuff, and we don't want you to turn into Green Goblin. So you need to go see a therapist." And then, once again, not afraid to talk smack to her boss, right? As happened with Nick Fury, and Norman Osborn's like, "Okay, maybe you're right. Maybe I need to go see something." And at this point, there's a point she's driving home from work. It's great comic panels. She's driving home and she sees dark tendrils come from the sky, and we see Sentry descend. Sentry is descending as the Void, and we've got the Void 2.0. The Avengers have to get together and try to take it down. And the way the Void is taken out in this is crazy. But ultimately, Norman Osborn is like, "Hey, Void, don't do this." And the Void's like, "Oh, yeah, no problem." And then he turns back into Sentry. Right? With that, upon finding this situation, right? So if it's that easy for him to take out Void, maybe the Dark Avengers are the way to go. But here's the thing, because it's Norman, right? He was Green Goblin for quite a while. He notices that Robert's wife is standing there, and he's like, "Oh, okay, y'all got an argument. You released the Void. That's dangerous. I'm gonna remember that." Goes back to Avengers Tower and goes to Hawkeye, or Bullseye at the time, and he said, "Hey, you need to kill her, right? You need to kill her. That'll be good." So Hawkeye goes off to kill said wife, and then all of a sudden, randomly, we see the Void again. Don't know why, right? Void shows up and he turns into Sentry, and he's like, "Okay, where's my wife?" And Hawkeye's like, oh, she killed herself because of the void, right? She doesn't like the fact that you turned into the void, whatever. So then the void starts, raging out or whatever, and it turns into this kind of huge thing, and so the Avengers and other vigilantes, whatever, have to kind of wrangle back in the void, and ultimately we find out that Norman has been turning all the way into the Green Goblin. And when this is revealed, and this move with the void is made public, the Dark Avengers are torn apart by the United States government, and the Avengers are reinstated, and things return to a form of normality. In this, everybody's fired, everybody's hauled off to prison. Victoria Hand is thrown into an interrogation room, and they're like, and Captain America comes in, and Captain America's like, yo, tell me about this. What's this situation? Like, why would you work with Norman Osborn? She said, a lot of people, this is a little bit reflective, I think, of politics, maybe now, but he was like, why would you back Norman Osborn? She said, I'm not the only one that backed Norman Osborn, right? I'm not the only one that backed Norman Osborn. I honestly thought that he was trying to do the best for us, the best for America, the best for S.H.I.E.L.D. I honestly thought he had our best interest in heart, and I was proven wrong, and that's on me. But I thought I was doing what was best for the country. There was no malicious thing in her. And with that, Captain America was like, I believe you wholeheartedly. You're a patriot. You're a patriot, and you tried to do what you thought was best. You're the only one not fired. And she's like stunned and whatever. So she stays as this like VP character over. So now we have the Avengers being restored, and then the new Avengers with Luke Cage being a thing. So we're gonna move. This is where we move into New Avengers. So she's a good guy all of a sudden, because her entire thing was that she never meant to be a villain, right? She was the manager of villains. She was the one trying to keep them in check, right? She actually wasn't that bad. So anyway, Captain America gives her a note and was like, go to the New Avengers, mansion, and give this letter to Luke Cage. So she comes in with a giant gun because she knows everybody hates her, and she thinks everyone's going to attack her, so she wants to be able to defend herself. So she has a giant gun and a letter, right? As you do. So Luke Cage sees the giant gun, and she's like, hey, I'm y'all's manager. Here's a note. And Luke Cage literally, he does that Hulk gamma wave. He's like, no. And she gets thrown against the wall, and he's like, what are you doing? Why are you here? Blah, 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 blah. And he gets the letter, and he reads it. And it's from Captain America. He can tell us it's from Captain America, and it's real. And ultimately, everybody, he convinces he's like, I trust Cap, therefore I'm going to trust you. And he lets her on, and Jessica Jones, Luke Cage's wife, is like, absolutely not. Don't trust her, whatever. And so she starts running the show. And so what we have from here is she's a background character at Avengers Mansion who's doing things for a long period of time. Pretty much all the new Avengers run she's got something going on, right? And every single time she's essentially calling in from a cell phone. Hey, this is going on. There's a really fun little arc where Absorbing Man breaks into Avengers Mansion, and her, Maria Hill, and Sharon Carter capture him. And she also has a really big thing with Spider-Man, where they really hate each other, and Spider-Man refuses to trust her. And that turns into this kind of really big back and forth thing. But once again, we have a situation where the way her whole thing ends, so she's essentially managing, and then we find a situation where one day the sky opens up and demons coming from the sky instead of tendrils, right? Followed by Agamotto, right? And I'm a big old Doctor Strange fan, okay? So at this point in time, I'm probably gonna make something crash, but this is important for the bit. Right? We have Agamotto falling from the sky, right? We have Agamotto falling from the sky, and Agamotto's coming down, and he was thrown out of the Vishanti because of some really messed up stuff he did during Doom War. So he is thrown out, and so he's like, okay, well, now if everybody's going to be against me, I need to get the one tool that can actually stop me. Hey, ho, ho, I have Agamotto, right? I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but that just kind of worked out that way. So he comes down, and he's like, I'm going to go get this. And at the time, if you follow Doctor Strange, I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. I'm not the Sorcerer Supreme. Clara is the Sorcerer Supreme. Brother Voodoo, Dr. Voodoo is a Sorcerer Supreme, whatever. At the time, Dr. Voodoo had the Eye of Agamotto. So Agamotto tracks him down and goes to take that back. But he is also, logic dictates. If you go after the one weapon that can kill you, there's also a very real chance of it killing you. So anyway, Agamotto gets killed by the Eye of Agamotto. But so does Brother Voodoo, which is how we get to Victoria Hand. So after Agamotto is taken out, Brother Voodoo's dead. Everybody is like, oh no, that sucks, blah 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 blah. Victoria Hand ends up, we see her in a different series of comics, obviously, but she's hanging out with Damien Hellstrom and having a good old time, and then out of nowhere she just stabs him in the chest and he's dead, right? And we see her walk away from this. The Avengers find out that Damien Hellstrom was killed by Victoria. Going to the mansion, she's screaming. There's a bit where she passes out and Captain Marvel picks her up. And we see a smirk on Captain Marvel's face, which implies something has happened, right? Ultimately, what happens is, since Damien Hellstrom is the one that is killed, it gets on Doctor Strange's radar, so Doctor Strange intervenes here, and he realizes that this has been done with some sort of possession. So he gets in a room with Victoria Hand, and he's like, we need to go to the astral plane and see what sort of thing is plaguing you. I have a feeling I know what it is. So if you read through Dr. Voodoo, Brother Voodoo's his story, he has really hard ties with his brother, Daniel Drum. So Brother Voodoo's actual name is Jericho Drum. I'm pretty sure there's a Frosty features Dr. Voodoo out there. You should check it out. We talk a lot about Jericho and Daniel Drum. So anyway, so they go to the astral plane, and lo and behold, they get there and immediately see Daniel Drum operating and working within these lines, and Doctor Strange is trying to talk him down. He's like, hey, you gotta let this go. So ultimately Daniel Drum was trying to get revenge for his brother's death, so he was killing people that essentially could have helped, right? Somebody that could have showed up with him and been able to take out the likes of Agamotto. And so he's acing people left and right, and by possessing other people and taking them out. And while trying to talk him down, Daniel Drum runs over and he grabs the astral heart out of Victoria Hand's body and rips it out of her non-corporeal form. Anyway, rips the heart out, which kills her. Effectively, you're automatically dead, right? So then Doctor Strange 1v1s Daniel Drum, takes him out, and then we come out and Doctor Strange is freaking out and Victoria's dead. And so essentially everybody came into a room, left the room with Doctor Strange and a panicking woman, came back, and it was a crying Doctor Strange and a dead Victoria Hand. But things are still well with Doctor Strange. But they, because of her conviction, because of her service to the Avengers, and all those things, because of who she was as a character, Captain America has there's a statue garden of heroes that lost their lives, like in battle, whatever. So she got her own statue in this like heroes garden, with the service that she did for the Avengers, etc. And she was given the respect she deserved, right? She was always trying to do what she thought was right. She stood up for what she believed in, and it ended up leading to her death. And as I said, as of this recording date, she is still deceased, right? Does that mean she'll stay that way? No. But she has appeared in Marvel Snap. She's now in Marvel Strike Force. Sometimes when characters get resurgences like that, they can come back. So things to consider. But as of right now, as far as I'm aware, there are no other comics with her in it. So there we are. Power level. Marvel Strike Force doesn't care about power level, but here on the Frosty Features, we do know the way that this works. If you are a multiversal threat, that means you can end the multiverse and all realities, not just your reality, but all realities at a whim. Universal means that you can end your reality, maybe then hop on over to another reality and end that one there. Cosmic means you are a threat on a planetary scale, being able to take out on the small end things like planetary bodies, but with enough time and effort, being able to take out something like a solar system or a galaxy. Nuclear means you have power equivalent to that of a nuclear bomb, leveling things like small cities, or when used enough, taking out something like a planetary body. Super soldier means that you are beyond all human capabilities. You are superhuman, super speed, super reflexes, etc. Superior to humans in every single way. Being able to take up things like brick walls all the way up to city blocks. City means that you are equivalent to a human being, but trained to the absolute and utter peak of human ability. In Marvel, we have this thing, think Olympic athlete, and in Marvel, we have things like CIA agents, mercenaries, ninjas, etc. performing this role. And then there's Greg. Greg is the undead Asgardian that is spawned by Hela in Marvel's Strike Force, and when he doesn't have an undying team to back him up, or Hela or anything, Greg is one of the easiest guys to kill in Marvel Strike Force. He's a nothing burger, right? So, due to undead Asgardian physiology, and just because I like to make the argument, Greg is equivalent to that of a regular human being. So, in this situation where I am the Frosty Osty, who is, believe it or not, absolutely 100% normal, regular human being, I'm as average as they come. I, driving down the road in my comic book car, I see the heavens open up and an army of Gregs fall to the earth, right? Upon falling to the earth, they all die because they're all regular humans. You know, they're all undead Asgardian, human level, whatever. They all smush on the floor. They're dead. But one had a parachute, and I happen to be the only heroic Greg level individual that noticed this man or this monster. I don't know gender as far as Greg is concerned. He's an undead as maybe whatever. He's fallen. Anyway, controlled fall, he lands. I'm like, hey, square up, guy. That looked pretty menacing there before everybody died. So here we go. 1v1. I step out of my car, tire iron, right? Greg down on the ground, regular human being beats him, right? So with that, in the case of Victoria Hand, I struggled with her a little bit. She is a regular human being that is trained. I don't know if she's at the peak. So it's ultimately what I'm going to say is Victoria Hand is the lowest level city you can be. She might be Greg level. There are some points where she hand-to-hand combats herself out of situations, which are kind of impressive, but at the end of the day, there's no feats that really put her above Greg. We just know that she is trained to the level of shield agent, and there is a reference that she is good for a shield agent, right? Which makes me put her at a city level individual. So there it is. As far as the according to Scopely, this is what I want to see. So with that, I know that's pretty wild. It doesn't actually give her background, right? But we get a write-up supposedly from the character that reeks of who she is as an individual, right? So with this, we don't have to have a backup. It doesn't mess up lore. What we get here is her actively working within the MSF lore, and the tone, why she's writing the letter, etc. all is set. Hey, this is who this character is, right? I don't need to know where she's from. I didn't need to know it in the comic book, right? This tells me who the character is without telling me who the character is. All this art is amazing. Every time they have votes like this, and they do the little breakdown dossier thing, is awesome. So this is they did it. This is it. I want to see this. I know following the fact that Vigilante had none, and then we get this for Victoria Hand is insane. I wish we could see more dedication to telling some sort of lore for Marvel Strike Force, as we did with this Victoria Hand description. So with that is Frosty Features Victoria Hand. I hope that you all enjoyed it. Please let me know your favorite Victoria Hand moments in the chat. You might have them, or in the comments, or Dark Avengers or New Avengers. Make it a little bit easier. Or if I got anything wrong, I'd be fine to hear that as well. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and follow on Twitch. We do Frosty Features live 8 a.m. Central Standard Time at the Twitch link, or at both links actually now. So if you want to check them out live, hit me up. Besides that, thank you all so much for watching this. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and most importantly, y'all, stay cool.